Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You're young.
Okay, we're live, by the
34.
way. We're live, by the way.
You can do
Live
that. No,
now.
you can do that by the end of the month.
We're
Yeah,
live
maybe.
with Joey and Len. No, go ahead. You guys can talk about who benches the most.
Yeah, that's
It's
great.
all good.
Isn't that what's the podcast even about? Isn't it about benching?
No, I was
Oh
gonna say,
shit, I'm
I-
leaving.
I was
Bench
gonna-
Press's podcast.
No, I was going to say it's about strongman, but you're going to have your opinions
Oh
on that.
god.
This
yeah.
isn't the only fan account that you're going to be opening up, right, Joey? Like,
Yeah.
Len, come right in, speak right into the
Oh,
mic.
sorry.
Turn
You
that
can't
mic.
turn. You can't turn.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, if you turn, you got to do this.
Stare
Do
into
like
my
this.
eyes the
Yeah,
whole
you're-
time.
Yeah. But we cut you off. What were you saying?
I was saying that Joey should do the OnlyFans account. That's what we'll be talking about right now.
Yeah. There we go. He tore his Achilles, by the way.
Oh
But
really?
he's way ahead of me. He's like already squatting and jumping and shit.
This is week,
How
week
long?
10 for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Already? Holy
Yeah.
cow, that's fast.
Man, I don't know. You
and
guys,
was it a full tear?
It was enough to get a cast on it. Yeah. So you guys are a little longer in the tooth than me. I don't know if this was the same for when you guys.
Longer in the tooth.
Well, when you
We're basically
okay, so-
old people.
Okay,
and
so
he's
you
young
told
guy.
me. You told me when we
Hey,
walked
you
in,
could just say well, you're a lot younger than us.
You have less hair than me,
Yeah.
so I figured.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm a very kind guy. Okay, when I'm mean on my show, I'll be nice on yours. When they tell you to put the cast on, they like let it hit with a little bit of slack in the tear zone, right? But what they never used to do is tell you after that first 2 weeks in the cast, when you're in the boot, you got to get on it right away. Everything you do is got to be walking, putting pressure on that. And they protect it pretty well, right? They put like the wedges underneath. You remember this.
Mm-hmm.
And so they pull the wedges every few days after a couple of weeks in the boot. Before you know it, you're stretched out. But I still can't, for all the things I can do, I still can't pull it past 90 degrees on my own. I can't, I just cannot do it. Even if I could, mentally, there's like a bit of a block there still. So
How'd you do it?
playing basketball.
Oh.
Yeah. I blame my friend Fat Doug. You might know him. He's the premier. Had me sitting on the couch for a month in December. And when I went to go back and play, after a month.
I was like, Fat Doug. I don't know Fat Doug.
After a month of pizza, beer, and video games. Yeah. It didn't
so
go as well as I had hoped. And I'm a good athlete. I just,
even if you do say so yourself.
The first game out, he hurt himself. It didn't
Yeah.
take much. It's
That's
the very
right.
first game.
That's right.
Oh, this is going nowhere fast.
Yeah. So why don't you guys explain what you for people who don't know you? What do you guys do? How did we cross paths?
How did we cross paths?
Well, we now know it was Nigel who came across your podcast. To describe this podcast, when did it start? What are you doing with it? What's the goal here?
I'll tell you that the podcast that we run is called the Canadian Bitcoiners Podcast. It runs twice a week, Monday and Wednesday. We stream both nights. We started this show, I think, just before the 2021 March COVID lockdown.
It was 3 weeks before. It was March 29th was our first episode we recorded.
2021.
2020 or 2020?
21.
21. We've only been doing it for a year.
There was a March
1 year.
lockdown last. I
Yes.
lost track of them.
So after our third episode where we were recording live at his house, they shut us down and we had to do it all remotely after that. And we've been doing it ever since.
You didn't really have to, but yeah. No, I know.
Well, Len lives a little further than, he's not a neighbor of mine. So especially when everyone knows about like gas prices and all this other nonsense is going on here. You really want to have a guy drive all that way. Not to mention it's harder, as you guys know, I'm sure, it's harder to edit live audio properly without this kind of like mint setup, right? We're at a kitchen table with 2 mics and a Zoom H6.
Awesome.
You know what I mean? So it was doable, but in post it's a lot harder. Now when we do the show, Len does a kick-ass job, pulls together all the stories. He sends it to me a couple of days before, and we just riff on the latest and greatest in Bitcoin, macro, some of the stuff you guys talk about. We've quoted you guys on the show. I got this number from your program. This, quarter point on every 100,000 is only $12 or something like that. Yeah, I thought that's a great stat. So when people, one of the things I like to say on our program over these rate hikes, right, that's got everyone's, knickers in a knot. It's not really going to fight inflation if all it costs you is a trip to Starbucks every month, right? And so talk to me when it's not just a trip to Starbucks. But anyway, we'll get into that, I'm sure.
2 different personalities, too. Good for you guys. And why did you call it the Canadian Bitcoin? What is it? I don't even know.
Canadian Bitcoiners.
Canadian Bitcoiners.
Yes.
Did you have that conversation of like, is anyone else calling their thing the Canadian Bitcoiners? That's a big name that you guys put down. And you're representing the whole country.
Yeah,
Joey gets the credit for that one. So I'm not sure how you came about with that name, but he's the one that sprung it on me. And for sure we're going to go ahead with it.
I'll take some credit, but my wife works in design and advertising. She's a graphic designer for a small agency in Waterdown. And one of the things she said to me was, if you're going to do a show like this and you want to find an audience, you got to get on the SEO thing. And so I came up with some other dumber names like Kitchen Table Bitcoin, other bullshit like that. But no one's going to look for Kitchen Table Bitcoin. Everyone's going to look for Canadian Bitcoiners. And that's sure as shit. We've found a ton of listeners like that.
Somebody was wearing your shirt in Miami. I don't know. I stopped one of your buddies. He knew one of you.
I don't want to say his name, but I think I know.
Oh,
who it is.
really?
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to dox him or anything, but I think I know. He's a really cool guy.
Yeah, I love how secretive you guys.
Well, I don't want to give anything up.
No. I totally
who knows?
respect that. I totally respect
the
that.
guy's situation. Who knows what he told his wife?
He was there with his wife.
Now I don't know if I should say it. The guy was there with some female.
Even better. But it's
Anyway, he
amazing,
was
like,
representing you guys, which was cool for me to see.
It's incredible. And
Yeah.
the support from and I'm sure you guys experience this as well. The support from a community of people who, for sure have not only a million other things to worry about, but they also have a million better things to do than listen to you yap about Bitcoin, macro. You guys talk about real estate and economics as well. For them to not only listen to the show, watch the show, come to the live streams, chop it up in the chat, all that, but then to buy a shirt and wear it at a Bitcoin conference makes you feel good.
Not just at the Bitcoin conference, Joey. He's worn at some other very prominent events.
Yeah,
I gotta give him kudos for that.
Yeah, some other loud downtown events. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a certain mystery about you two. So let me. How did you get into Bitcoin? What's the story? Nick, I explained, by the way, how we thought it was shit and laughed it off, and then we're like, holy shit, we were so wrong.
You thought it was shit. I just didn't pay attention to it.
You're one of many that thought it was shit, but one of very few who came around and made the right decision, right? Especially among your friends and your sort of industry and your peer group. How many people,
Once you get it, it hits you pretty hard.
Yeah.
And is that what happened to you guys? How did you go down this path?
So Len and I are colleagues outside of the podcast, and we had been discussing Bitcoin at the lunch table, much like we're doing right now.
It was round. It wasn't like this square-ish table.
Not quite.
Not quite as very close.
Not quite as many corners. And so we've been discussing it quite a bit. And a friend of mine who we talk about on the show once in a while, he goes by the moniker Manny Monero, just for our purposes. Again, we don't say names of anyone or anything. And so him and I were talking about buying it. We were looking at the price probably for 5 or 6 months leading into the summer of 2017. And the thing for us at the time wasn't that we didn't want to buy it. It's that we didn't know how. I didn't know what Coinbase was. I didn't know if there was a Canadian exchange. All these changes I had seen, it was always the same roadblocks, right? And before you know about KYC, AML, it's intimidating to go to a website you've never heard of before. In the case of Binance, you had to slide the puzzle piece over on your phone and get the capture done and send them a picture of your driver's license, some email you never saw before. I don't think so, man. I'm not doing that. And anyway, long story short, sort of a serendipitous event. A girl I dated years prior, I was talking to one of her friends on Twitter because he was talking about Bitcoin. I said, "Where do you buy it?" He told me about Coinbase, and off we went. Now, you guys didn't have to suffer through this burning hula hoop obstacle course to get Bitcoin.
I forgot about this until you reminded me. It was tough to get it back in the day.
You used to only be able to buy $50 a week, and Coinbase would stop you at $50 until you built up your trust with the platform. So you'd buy $50 one week, and they'd give you the mechanism was they'd give you the Bitcoin right away, but they wouldn't charge they debit your bank account until after the fact, right? Because as we know, the banking system doesn't work that way.
Yeah, got it.
So after a couple of weeks of buying 50, they'd say, congratulations, you're a trusted client now. You're bumped up to $75 a week.
Oh,
and so you're slowly building up this stack, right? And so, Len and myself and a couple of our other buddies bought, back in that 2017 bull run. It's going up and up and up. We don't have that much, but still nice to see this thing going crazy. And then, I remember being out at dinner with my wife, and it was her work Christmas dinner. And I was in the washroom, one hand on my unit, one hand on my phone, looking at the price, and it's the Bcash day. And the thing is it's falling out of the sky, precipitous drop after precipitous. Every time I refresh, it's a lower number. And so I'm messaging my buddy. I'm like, what do we do? We couldn't sell. You weren't allowed to sell in Canada.
Well, Quadriga was still, it was there at the time.
We didn't know that. I wasn't sending Coinbase was easy because all you had to do is take a picture of yourself.
Right.
Remember?
So why couldn't you sell?
You weren't allowed. Coinbase would not allow any sales.
Coinbase wouldn't let you do it.
And
but Quadriga, you were able to do so.
Got it.
And that's an exchange that has a very troubled history.
Yeah.
Spotty.
I think a lot of people know about that story.
Yeah.
But at the time, Quadriga was available for you to sell your
We
Bitcoin.
didn't know that. We didn't know that. So Coinbase wouldn't let you hold a CAD balance. And so a few of the people that were buying, friends of mine, people at work, they saw that price drop, they stopped buying, and they never looked at it again.
Just kind of disappeared.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what I feel like it kind of happened for a year. I didn't even hear about it at all.
Right.
Yeah, because everyone will talk about, well, if you bought it here, if you bought it at $500 or even if you bought it at $3,000, yeah, but would you hold it until today, right, is always the question. Or you just forget about it. Yeah, it went up, it came crashing back down, so you're just like, oh, I just left it there and I didn't know what the heck. Because I had a similar experience. I forget what year it was, But I had someone tell me, they're like, look, I went for lunch with someone that I like was in the space a little bit. And he told me, he's like, look, if just to understand the space, you should buy something. I'm like, you're right, you should. And I'll never forget it. I woke up a Sunday morning. I'm like, okay, I'm going to figure out how to buy this Bitcoin stuff. And I went on, I tried to open an account. Then it started wanting to link to my bank account. I'm like, I'm not linking it to my bank account. I don't know what the hell this is. I'm going to give it direct access.
I wonder if it was Quadriga back then.
No, it was. I want to say it was Kraken, but I'm not 100% sure. That's what I was thinking about.
I don't think it was Kraken.
But yeah, I don't think so either. But it's just what comes to mind. It was some name like that. But anyways, same experience. And then I just said, screw it, man. I can't figure this stuff out. And I'm like, I'll come back to it again. And then after those few hours, I never circled back to it. And then all of a sudden, a couple years later is when we looked at it. We're like, holy shit, man, we should look at this a little more seriously.
It's you guys know this all too well. Real estate, people talk about how your home is the best investment you ever make. It's not because your home, you weren't suddenly sharper than you have been playing the market on the day you bought your home, suddenly sharper than you were buying your car, buying art, buying trading cards. The reason your home is the best investment you ever make is because you have to hold on to it. You can't sell it.
Not too liquid.
That's what, you know what I mean? You can't just get rid of it.
It's a big purchase on leverage. Yeah.
So I think if everyone had to hold, for example, if you were buying just ETFs or whatever, and you had
with leverage and you had to hold
for 40 years, you'd probably do okay. You know what I mean? Generally speaking, you'd do okay over the last 40 years anyway. The next 40, we'll see. But so yeah, we held, we bought, we learned, did a lot of the stuff you guys have done, Bitcoin Standard. Made it through those hoops, and before you know it, you not only do you get it, but you start to get a lot of other things you didn't get before, about time preference, about how to sort of handle your finances day to day, long-term planning.
So this was why you didn't give up on it after the 2017, 2018 kind of period where the price came down?
I could say, I don't know about you, but when I bought into it, I bought a little bit more. And then as the price continually dropped, I kind of just let it be. I didn't buy for some time. And then I started buying again once the price started to hit the floor, and I saw it going back up. That's when I started buying once again. So I just held on to it, didn't really think much of it. But really Bitcoin, if you think about it, like where we went hard into it, there's the watershed moment of March 2020. And that's where a lot of people's eyes, they've opened up to what is wrong with the world, the economic world, and what is right with Bitcoin that could solve a lot of the problems. And that's when I really went hard in. I'm not sure about you.
So yeah, good for you guys. What's the current attack on Bitcoin that has you most concerned right now? And I want to get back, you kind of brushed over your real estate comment. You said next 40 years. I want to go back to that. But what's the biggest threat right now for Bitcoin in your eyes?
Government regulation, over-regulation would probably be something that could really derail things. It wouldn't take it all to a full stop. But I think if they decided to say, okay, mining, for instance, there's no longer... you're no longer able to do mining with a certain jurisdiction. That could cause a real problem, especially in North America, because there's a lot of Bitcoin miners that are located in North America. And if they were to end up stopping doing whatever they're doing, it's going to cause a real problem with the network.
You don't think we're past the threshold where they would not do that?
I can never say never, because there's always some person out there that might have an idea that's saying, you know what, they might be getting fed the wrong information, that Bitcoin uses too much power. It's going to boil the oceans. It's creating a lot of greenhouse gases.
Yeah, I will save us. I will ban this. Yeah.
Yeah, I would imagine there's still some people out there that may want to do this, and they'll be championing that type of narrative. It's not true, but you'll still have those people. I think that's the biggest hurdle that we'd have to overcome. I don't think it's a likely hurdle, but that's probably
Joey, another hurdle for you? Or
I just want to say, you are always like forever the optimist, like that they're getting, for example, fed the wrong information, as if they don't know what the correct information is about Bitcoin, about mining, energy use, all that stuff. To that point, there was a tweet the other day, I think from Troy Cross, like the philosopher / energy guy. And he made this point that if we're really that concerned about energy use for things that don't, are quote unquote net negative to society, are we like, is anyone on the horn with Pornhub about the use on their data centers?
I saw him mention that. Yeah.
Like, does anyone talk to them? Are we talking to people?
I think Nick Carter retweeted that. Well, he basically said, like, how much electricity are we using on porn? Is anyone really talking about that?
At one point, the number of like that data of internet traffic that was porn related versus anything else, that had like dwarfed like that other few things below it combined. Like I forget.
Holy
I forget
cow.
what the number was. Yeah, this was a couple years ago. I remember seeing this somewhere. I was like, I was blown away by, if you look at the percent of internet traffic that was porn related, and I don't know how they track it all, but it was flipping large.
Yeah.
It was mind blowing.
So where's the pushback there?
Yeah, I never even heard of this.
So where's the pushback there?
I think you're being optimistic, thinking that some of these politicians are really understand what's going on.
I think
I'm more kind of to Len's point where like they're getting fed some information. Not all of them.
It's almost
but
impossible.
I think the majority.
It is almost impossible to not know at this point. It's almost impossible. When we first started in Bitcoin, 2017, okay, I would have given you the benefit of the doubt. I would have said, it's difficult for you to find data. For example, there was none of these dashboards, these mining dashboards, the block size, the block height, all this stuff. This was all still, it was very much still in flux in some respects. The block size war was not, was recent, and there was nothing, like no friendly user interface to find all this stuff. It was hard to find it. Like we say, when we got here, okay, we pulled up to the campsite and I couldn't see the fucking fire, okay? I couldn't get to the campfire. It was hard. There's wild animals along the way. Now, if I pull up to the campsite, there's fucking tiki torches lining the way there. I'm making it there, no problem. You got no excuse now.
Yeah, but there's a lot of people not pulling up. Like if they don't look,
there's a lot of
into the
people, but
information-
politicians.
But those are the people that aren't looking into the information. Like how many of them you think hear about this Bitcoin thing, and someone's like, "Oh, it's bad for the environment." They're like, "Oh, sounds very interesting.
I'm pro environment.
Let me go look into the facts and read the studies on this and see how it works."
I will
like
put
what
some
percentage
critical
of,
thinking
I don't
into
know.
this.
Listen, I think
You're not.
Like
we're
you
longer.
think
Hey,
you're-
we're longer in the tooth than you.
I love that.
do you think your friend Fat, what was it, Fat Doug?
He's not my friend.
Oh, I thought
You
you
guys
said
are
I thought
buddies.
you called him your friend or your buddy.
He's not my buddy.
Let me give you a different spin. It's not what they believe, it's what they're saying. Because how many of these, I'm going to slightly change the topic here, how many of these politicians believed in spending money to oblivion to the fact that, to the point where they're going to obliterate the economy? They knew we were going to get to this point, but they did so to appease their constituency.
Right.
So they may talk about, now to go back to the Bitcoin narrative,
Are you saying politicians would buy votes like that?
Incredible.
Wow, that's
it's nature.
But Len,
That's
you
shocking.
think they know what they're doing to the economy when they spend money they don't have?
You'd have to be obtuse not to think that. I mean,
yeah,
to print out another $1
everyone-
trillion here and say, oh,
because there's no case to be made that politicians don't manage their their individual balance sheet. There's no case to be made that no one at least considers the consequences of building
sure.
an economy, a country, a society on deficit spending, and we're seeing it. To your question earlier about what is the biggest threat, I am personally in the ESG as the biggest threat camp. There was a great panel at the Bitcoin conference. It seems to me one of the only honest actors in the space.
and not talked about enough, eh?
Yeah, Marty Bent was on a panel with Jamie Leverton, Troy Cross.
Yeah, we missed that one. When you're there live, there's so much going on.
Right.
You can't actually get to everything.
Right, and on the main stage, they're putting celebrities. The main stage is hunting for likes and clout, and on the side stages, they're having real discussions.
Yeah.
Right?
yeah. We went to some of the lightning stuff because that's what we were
The
interested
lightning
in
stuff was
right?
great.
Probably
Yeah,
great.
It was great.
So that's an important topic.
Where's your lightning node?
You're sitting right next to a Bitcoin node.
There it is.
You didn't know that? Hey, Len, right under your nose the whole time.
I saw that. I was
Do you
wondering
think
what
we're
it was.
Bitcoiners or what? Len.
So that's a Raspberry Pi. That's an SSD.
Len, you have a Bitcoin magazine in front of you. You got a Tahini's hat, and you're sitting next to a Bitcoin node. What else can
it's
we do
well
for you?
disguised.
What else can we?
I like it.
It is great. The ESG thing is a big attack vector because there's, again, like we talked about sort of politicians and the way that political whims dictate outcomes in a country like Canada, United States, any first world democracy is like this, unfortunately. And let's face it, most people that vote, I mean, I don't want to say shouldn't be allowed to vote, but certainly bring less to the table at the ballot box than some, right? There's an 80-20 rule generally across society. This is no different. And when you look at that panel that Marty was on, you got Troy and Jamie talking a lot about, well, we need regulation, we need government intervention, we need clarity, we need ESG, we need all these things. And Marty, I think he was getting upset. He probably also had a bit of a hangover, if I had to guess, but he's making the right point. So we don't need anyone. We need anyone to get here. The network is sufficiently decentralized. It's sufficiently spread around the world. You can run your own node, as you guys just pointed out. And if you want to play this game, you can play it. If you want to mine, you can mine. If you want to use oil and gas, coal, solar, whatever, wind, flare in an oil field, you do it. We're innovating in the energy space. The innovation is with the use of energy for mining. It is not with getting bogged down in bureaucratic processes that are dictating terms to you with really no justification for doing so. These stories about green energy and whatnot, a lot of people talk about Elon Musk, for example, and Teslas. These are some of the dirtiest cars to manufacture, to dispose of, to maintain. Like it's not really hard to see all this stuff. You can't tell me that, everyone throwing their cell phones away is terrible for landfills because the batteries are hard to dispose of. And then also tell me in the same breath that I got to get a battery operated car. Come on. You don't think I'm that dumb, do you? The problem, I think, is that they do think we're that dumb.
So your point is that the Bitcoin network is big enough and sustainable enough by itself that a regulatory body in a nation state like Canada or the US is small potatoes compared to what Bitcoin can handle now.
It should be.
It's going to operate with or without the United States,
It should be.
with or without Canada.
But aren't they having a different conversation? Because from the miner's perspective, so let's say take Jamie's perspective, right? If she's looking at Hut 8, so she would look at it and be like, well, as a CEO of this company, we're comfortable with the regulations because we want to know how to play within these regulations so that we can make money and then confidently move forward as a business, versus the argument that you're making or Marty was making about, well, the Bitcoin network might not need that. And I think both can be right.
I think
there's nuance here. Like, her perspective is coming from that.
From a corporate, like she's looking out for as a CEO of the company, she should be looking out for the best of the company.
There's a different way to phrase that. You're not wrong. She's looking out for the company. What she's doing is pulling up the regulatory ladder. Because if you have to play ball with ESG regulations, there's only so many people who can make that can navigate that trajectory, right? There's legal, there's power procurement, all this stuff. She's not dumb. And, one of the things she said on that panel was, we're never gonna, allow for extra regulation on mining through this council or extra regulation on mining through different licenses. We're going to lobby against that. We won't bend the knee. I would say that if you look at Hut 8's history, recent history especially, all they do is bend the knee. The knee is constantly bent. There's rug burns on the knees, boys. Okay. There's Web3. There's gaming. There's all the stuff.
I don't know examples of what you're talking about.
Hut 8 now has a pretty thick corporate catalog of things that are not related to Bitcoin.
So they mine Bitcoin. Let's go right to the nitty gritty here. So they mine Bitcoin, but they don't just mine that. They also mine Ethereum. So right off the bat,
do they? I didn't know that.
Yeah, they mine a little bit of Ethereum. So it is what it is. But now they're also getting into the e-gaming type of thing. So they're sponsoring events and that. So they're getting into the gaming side of things, which is pretty far away from Bitcoin, if you ask me. And they're also getting into...
Are they sponsoring Bitcoin games or paying out in sats if you win a game?
No.
Oh, no. So it's just gaming side of the business.
It's Web3 through the gaming stuff.
Then they bought a data center for Web3.
Through online storage and cloud gaming. The list goes on. There's a number of things you could look at. And they do Twitter spaces every so often. Jamie and Sue and whoever else is on that team. And the stuff they talk about, there was a time when Hut 8 was sort of this monolith, both in terms of their output as a miner, and I think also as far as their sort of loyalty to the mission. One of my biggest problems with the Bitcoin conference is that to me looked a lot more like a party at the Playboy Mansion than it did Sunday service, and we're getting, in my view anyway, like I don't know, Lena, you feel about this. We're getting dangerously far away from Sunday service, and Sunday service is what got us here. There's a lot of stuff that should have shut this down.
It was inevitable that you'd come to this point. As you get more and more people.
I totally see where you're coming from, and I could agree with a lot of what you're saying. I guess the opposite argument, just to play devil's advocate here a little bit, would be that when you have things like gaming and stuff enter the conversation, it might attract some new people to the space that don't have a clue about Bitcoin, that pulls them into the world, that can then understand the importance of a digitally scarce monetary asset that didn't exist before. But could we see any value in that?
They're putting their resources in the wrong category. They should be mining strictly Bitcoin. They should be trying to secure the network and doing whatever it is that takes to do that. Mm-hmm. Why are they getting into something else?
It's difficult.
Make sense.
It's difficult.
Not only that, Hut 8 does one thing that to me it irks me the wrong way. They don't put the best candidates in the right position sometimes. Sometimes they determine who's going to be winning that position based on not who they are, but what they are.
Yeah.
You mean inside their corporation?
Yeah. They're
well, welcome to corporate politics.
I know.
Well, I'm not trying to defend them, because I'm agreeing with all that you're saying, but geez.
Well, we had the...
Len, you're passionate about this. You say it. Say it.
No, I mean, I don't want to... you don't screen out candidates just because they are what they are. You shouldn't be doing that. You should be assessing them what they are, like what they present.
I want to live in your world.
But but they are purposely saying this. Yeah. It's not like they're doing this behind closed doors. And we could kind of assume this is the case, but they are saying this, and this is their MO. Yeah. And if you're doing that, you look at other Bitcoin mining companies. I'll name one, Bitfarms. They have a brilliant person working for them, Ben Gagnon. If you talk to him, you listen to him talk about Bitcoin, the man is a genius. If you look at what he is, he may not have been hired by Hut 8 just because of who he is. And that's not right.
But I kind of want to live in a world that, you know what, I might, you know, the kind of old saying, I don't agree with what you're saying, but I'll fight to the death for your right to say it. I'll kind of extend that to Hut 8. Let them do as they want. It's their corporation.
And let the market choose, right?
Let the market choose. And I think that's ultimately where I stand. Let the market choose.
The problem is when you support stuff like ESG, the market can't choose because you eliminate competition that way. There's a regulatory ladder, a legal ladder that is important. It's important to have that ladder down. It's been down to date. But I think if you look at the way governments sort of try and capture industry, this is not the first time this will ever happen. You know, you look at oil and gas, same thing, right? You can't,
there's subsidies, there's different regulations. It's all over the place.
And like, it's not just in oil and gas, right? Look at the fight that Musk is having trying to buy Twitter, right? Whether you think he's going to do it, whether he's trying to do it or not trying to do it, it doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is these guys would rather dilute shares. They're not going to face any consequences from the SEC. This tells you exactly what kind of game you're playing.
It's not about shareholders.
No, and the game is slanted already, right? You don't want it to be more slanted because someone thought it was a feel-good story to, let's use more green energy. If the green energy is efficient, if it's effective, and if it's worthy of my capital, it'll get my capital.
So I've always thought as Bitcoin as like my own silent revolution where I can starve the beast. Like I'll buy Bitcoin, and that's money out of the traditional financial sector. It's out of generating taxes the way they would be naturally generated and so forth. And I've always thought that was kind of enough. But hearing you guys, I think you want more. You want people, right?
Oh, yeah.
You guys want what exactly? What would be like I don't know, what's an ideal national strategy or a group of people getting together? Like what would you like to see in the world?
I want to see more people focused on the things that are adjacent to Bitcoin, right? There's a number of things I think are adjacent to Bitcoin. I think you guys both have kids, right? Mm-hmm. So, I remember, for example, in this
we're long in the tooth,
right? Yeah, you can take that one with you. No charge on that. The thing I would say, if I look back at like my own growth, right? When I was 20 years old, I knew for sure that if I wanted to go slam back beers on Dollar Beer Thursdays at Isaac's, the Brock campus bar, I could do it. And as long as I figured it out in the next 2 years that I needed decent grades, graduate with a diploma, and then I could go get a job after that, and hopefully things will work out, I was okay to do all those things. And so my behavioral pattern was I can drink a few beers and also succeed if I just wise up a little bit. How do you convince a 20-year-old now, for example, that if you make all the right decisions, you're going to be able to afford a house and have a family? How do you do it? You can't. There is no 20-year-old who's in a Bachelor of Arts program at any major university anywhere in the country, anywhere in either country, probably Canada or the U.S., who's going to be able to graduate and have a salary that allows them to buy a home before they turn 30. They're going to have tons of student debt. They're going to have an impossibly difficult and accelerating away from them housing market to deal with. Not to mention that, their peers will be also sort of behaving a different way. You may not have a great group of friends like you did before. You may not have a great nuclear family like you did before. All these things make a big difference, and we're not seeing the results of these things yet, but we're gonna. And Bitcoin fixes a lot of that stuff. So I don't need a panel of influencers or whatever to talk to me or my government about why they should use Bitcoin. I think like I always say to Len, the government knows why they should use Bitcoin, and that's exactly why they're not going to use it. There's nothing we're not going to break.
And that's why we're here where we are right now.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest.
So when you hear a politician like Pierre talk about Bitcoin, does that get you excited, or just like he's playing to the crowd?
No, I think he believes in it because he does have some skin in the game. It's publicly known that he's bought into the ETF, and I think he has into one of those spot Bitcoin ETFs. Yeah. So he's put something into it. But not only that, he has to have some Bitcoin because when he was at Tahini's not too long ago, he paid for.
That's true.
So he must have. I'm just trying to connect the dots here.
Should have grabbed his phone.
I know I'm not going to touch that. But so no way.
Let me see.
Show me your wallet.
Government phone. Don't touch that thing.
I think he believes in it, but how much of an impact can he have? He's only one person, and he's working in a system that is already in place and it's been here for a long period of time. And
Agreed.
I'd love to see the Canada, even the United States, adopt the Bitcoin standard. I know it's a far
Never. I can't see.
It may not, but it's maybe far. But I'd love to see that, because the root of this problem here, anything we're doing here, we're just treating the symptoms. We got to get to the root of it. And you talked about it on a recent podcast. I think it was with you two, or with Lynn Alden was there. I can't remember. But you're saying that
if it was smart, then she said it.
Yeah.
you're quoting something she said, and it was something along the lines that the debt to GDP was quite low in the early 70s, and since then it's went continually up. It was I think 30%, and now we're at 110%. I think it's the numbers you were quoting. What happened in the early 70s? Well, they got off the gold standard, and the further you are away from this, and the longer you're going to stay off any type of standard, you're just going to continually have problems, and a problem that you will never be able to solve.
Agreed. Okay, so then just getting back to that point, and you guys were touching on it. What do you want to see? You want to go right to a Bitcoin
I'd
standard?
love to see it, but I can't see that happening. It's my dream.
Yeah.
But because as long as this doesn't take place, my money, which is representative of my effort, my time, and all that stuff, it's being debased. So that to me, they're devaluing my time. They're devaluing my effort, my energy, like that.
So what? I guess the question then goes to, what are you willing to give up? Because everyone's going to have to give up something. Right, because for any politician to go to any, whether it's Bitcoin or gold or whatever, if there was another invention that came out that said, okay, it's going to be, this is the sound money now. Now to do that, we can't have deficit spending. So what are you giving up? Are you giving up your police force? Are you giving up your roads? Are you giving up your arts programs or social programs?
You got to give up a lot.
You got to give up stuff.
Absolutely.
So
we can still do deficit spending. We should have to borrow at the open market at the free
and then
rate.
we have to make money as a government be profitable to pay it back.
The way it used to be done is, if you wanted to fund something very costly, like a war, you'd either have to tax people or sell bonds, or a combination of the two. So right away, you're funding something that is very costly. Now you don't have that. You want to fund something? You borrow it, and then future generations are not going to have to pay for it.
Just the road to move it. If we truly go to a sound money system, I strongly believe that the road from here to there is a fucking nasty road.
Sure.
You know.
Well, for sure, you have to give up a lot. The lifestyle we're living right now, it's a result of this whole fiat environment. We'll have to tighten our belts quite a bit to live in that type of environment.
Yeah, but I don't mean I mean like there'll be movements of people rioting in the streets because of it.
And you know what you're having right now? You're having movements of people rioting in the streets of Sri Lanka and Lebanon.
No, you're right. You're right. And we're seeing it. I agree. I agree.
Where they've defaulted under debt. Now, it's not going to take forever before we get to that.
Didn't we just announce? Wasn't there a tweet out there that says the Bank of Canada's raising a U.S. bond, a U.S. denominated
you sent
bond?
that to me. Yeah.
Are they
the 3-year type?
I didn't look at the details on it. I literally staring at my phone in shock.
So the last time they did that was
response
2019.
like, why the hell would they do that? Oh,
Sorry?
They did it before?
Yeah, in 2019, I think they did the same thing. So they're just copying what was done just a few years ago.
Yeah, well, if they did in 2019, it's still the stupidest thing I've ever heard of, and I don't understand why our government would ever do that. Why would I want to earn in Canadian dollars and have to pay my debt in U.S. dollars?
Shouldn't Trudeau look into these things and research them? You think that the politicians should know all this stuff?
I think they know. I think they know. I think they know.
I think they don't. I think that some head people don't even know they issued the bond.
There's a two sort of tier system when it comes to like politics in a modern democracy, right? There's the celebrity politician. This is like, you know, I'm not saying like Trudeau's a bad politician. Obviously, the guy's very capable. He's capable as a politician.
Oh, okay. As a drama teacher, is any good?
I no comment.
Okay.
No, because those pauses don't come off right.
Yeah, they seem fake.
When he speaks.
Yeah.
The thing I would say is that he's a man who's, you know, sort of holding the banner for a bunch of people who are behind him, under him, making decisions on these sorts of things. He may not know all the things about Bitcoin deficit spending that he should. Maybe there's other politicians, you know, that are also not knowing quite as much as they should. But I would suggest to you guys that there's a lot of people underneath those politicians who do know exactly.
Oh, sure. Okay. Yeah. We agree on that.
Yeah.
100%.
And so like to me, the difference, there's really, you know, these are one and the same. As far as like the sort of, you know, what I want for Bitcoin, what I really want is for more people to adopt it and become, you know, nodes in their personal lives. You guys are the Bitcoin guys in your life, right? You go to a dinner party, you hold a class here, instructional session, whatever. People want to talk about real estate, but I know you get questions about Bitcoin too, because if I look through your podcast feed, it's real estate, real estate, real estate, real estate 2 years ago. And now it's basically real estate, Bitcoin, real estate, Bitcoin.
You guys like are so Bitcoin, real estate.
You guys are so into Bitcoin. You'll put up with each other for an hour and a half instead of getting a guest in here and talk about Bitcoin, right?
Totally,
100%.
Yeah.
So I've listened to those. Those are good episodes. You should do more of those, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll talk shop off the air. So, so I would just say, if the more people adopt it and understand it, and the more people have this sort of like elevator pitch, like, to your point, right? You and me are in a bit of a different basket demographically. You can take that one with you too. Longer in the tooth, different basket demographically.
That one's not as good. No,
yeah. Longer in the
we'll give you credit for one.
One
is credit for that one.
The other one was corporate.
Longer in the tooth before your time. So for you to bring it back to life is
elder statesman.
Second one's corporate speak. So your concern is a lot with like this sort of debasement, right? Because you've already given all this time and all this energy. They hold all the cards now.
I'm in a pretty good situation because the fact that I do own a house.
It's true. But there are a lot of people who don't. And even, Len, even if you own the house, the money in a pension, for example, is eroding. The money that like every year that passes that your daughter doesn't have a job, for example, is the time is kind of eroding, right? Things are getting away from her. This is already banked time, banked energy on your part. And so that's a conversation you have with people of that age. I think for me, I look at my buddies and I say, man, you're probably not keeping a ton of money in your savings account anyways.
Not in your 30s.
Because it's not doing anything.
Yeah, but even in your 30s, you're just spending money.
Yeah.
Money's going out the door, yeah.
I don't know. I have some money anyway, but not a lot. But some in my checking savings account.
Why are you buying Bitcoin with that?
I do. That's the point.
That's the point.
That's the point I'm going to make, right? I keep some fiat flexibility, but with every dollar I don't need, it goes either into my TFSA or into my Bitcoin stack. And I just say man, you get a paycheck every 2 weeks. Are you really so incapable of budgeting for that you need to have $1,000, $2,000? Heaven forbid you're one of these people who's got 6 months of salary in cash over the last year. How's that treating you? How's that treating you? You down 20% maybe? If you're looking at official numbers. If you think the official numbers are 6.7%. Yeah, you're down
I admire your thinking. I don't think most of your friends fully understand when you're explaining that to them.
They don't. Yeah. And so I just touch points, right? You guys didn't have the first a great experience first time you heard about Bitcoin. You're buying, you're forgetting about it. We
laughed at it.
You know what I mean? Yeah. A lot of people do.
But when was it when you laughed at it? Because it's a different time.
I think it was 2017. Was my last real laugh. It was you know who it was? It was one of our events, and the AV guy, you know who I'm talking about, leaned over to me while you were on the stage, and he showed me his phone. He goes, "Hey, my buddies told me to buy this Bitcoin stuff." And I'm like, "Oh shit!" And the price was going like this. I'm like, "Oh god, here we go."
Well, to put it into context, the economy at that time was doing much, much better than what it is doing right now.
Yeah.
So you could have laughed at that.
I just didn't understand some of the fundamentals of the scarcity of it. I did not know it wasn't controlled and that there was ultimate scarcity. So I didn't know some of the characteristics that would have got my attention.
We didn't spend the time to research.
Yeah, we didn't look into
when
it.
COVID hit, we actually had the time
to read
because we were gold guys before. So we looked at inflation and we looked at devaluing dollars. So we understood all that concept. And then when COVID hit and everything shut down, and we were coming into the office to try to keep things together, but it was quiet. There's no one else here. And there was a couple of reports that we were looking at. There was one Raoul Pal report.
I mentioned Raoul Pal and the Bitcoin standard.
Yeah, and then that led us to the Bitcoin standard, and we read those, and then we're like, oh crap! It just kind of fell into place naturally. I think because we were already believers of a lot of the principles behind it. It was just the digital side of the same principles versus the analog side, which we were looking at as gold and stuff like that.
Why do you guys sell yourselves short then? When you're talking about your friends might not be able to get it, or my friends might not be able to get it. Anyone can get it. It's just a matter of how many times does it hit you. If it hits you once and you get it, great. If it hits you twice and you get it, great.
Sure.
And now, the friction back in 2017 was much greater. Everyone was talking about how big a scam it was. The prices going parabolic, all this stuff, right?
Tulip mania.
Right, exactly. You know what I mean? And now what you see is ETF products trading, governments making it legal tender.
Oh, yeah.
The discussion has really evolved, right? It's become civilized in a way. And so now when you talk to somebody about, for another example, right? If you talk to somebody about inflation in 2015, what would they say to you? It's not that big a deal. It's 2% or 3%.
Even 2 years ago,
your income will go up anyway.
Whatever, right? There's always some answer.
They wouldn't even know the number. It's not even reported. No one was talking about it. Yeah.
Because it wasn't in the zeitgeist then. Now, if you talk to somebody inflation, even if they don't know the number, they know it's bananas. They know that their milk is more expensive. They know their dog.
That's a good point. They know what the word fiat or a fiat dollar is.
Here's a different way.
A
different way of looking at it. a lot of people, they will change when they get burned. They will look at other things to do. But even when they get burned, they're going to look at other people for handouts. They're going to go to the government and ask for some forgiveness or some loan or something.
Yeah.
That's going to be their first recourse. Not to look at something like Bitcoin, is to ask for something to help them prop them up.
For the time being. But I think, like I said, with enough touch points, now there's an environment that's friendly to those conversations in a way that it wasn't 3 years ago. And I think that, I don't want to say you like owe it to your friends. I know I talk to my friends about it sometimes, but they've heard me talk about it for 3 or 4 years now. And then if they don't get it now, they're not going to get it ever. But I'll still keep bringing it up. And so if they want to hear about it, they want to talk about it, it's only a matter of time, because at some point, those numbers are not going to be, you're not going to be able to pass those off as it's Russia, it's COVID, it's
There's going to be something else coming up in not too distant future.
But eventually people will get it, I think.
I have some points I wrote down. I want your opinion on the, what could, for the Miami Bitcoin Conference 2022, what could they have done differently? Because to pay for a big hall, we run events. So to rent a big hall and pay for all that, sometimes you need to bring in some people to pay that are corporations, maybe in this Web3 world or whatever it is, that maybe you don't fully agree with, because...
Or you
Bitcoin,
need celebrity speakers to attract guests, because celebrities work to sell tickets.
Yeah.
Right?
So like, how do you have a big conference, or do you just not have one? Because how do you pay for it?
I think you have one. I think there's like a line you can draw, and it's not that hard to see the line. Like it's very easy for it to come into focus. There's companies that are pro Bitcoin. And
Okay, so you think there's enough?
Yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah.
And
they could have chosen better sponsors, or at least
the sponsors is one thing. That
was huge.
Yeah, and
having Marathon there, and they still have a very shady.
But I get why you bring in sponsorship money. I understand that. If you want to bend the rules, my rules, like there's obviously no hard and fast conference rules, but if you want to bend the rules and bring in money to pay for something like that, do it. Fine. I'm not gonna love it, but I'll hold my nose and I'll swallow it down. The bigger beef I had with the conference was the guests, and you guys were there on the main stage. You didn't see a lot of stuff about the Lightning Network adoption. The mining panel was on a different stage altogether.
No.
And so what do they got?
Kevin O'Leary was talking on that first day. Remember that industry day?
And that guy flip-flops all the time on his stance with Bitcoin. He's very much into the altcoin.
And so you got these guys like O'Leary. I love Dave Portnoy. I'm a Barstool guy.
Yeah.
But like, what the fuck
What does he
doing
deliver?
there? What's he doing there? He doesn't need to be there. Andrew Yang.
He's selling tickets, to Nick's point. He's attracting a younger audience.
He left. He didn't even do his panel. So
oh really?
He was only there for a little while.
He bolted after his.
I saw him. I was next to him. I was standing right next to him at one point.
Yeah.
I got to ask you a question. Did you think that the conference itself was run perfect, or did you see there's some holes in it that need to be filled?
Because we run our events ourselves, and we know that, no, it was fine.
I think the actual organization of the conference and the way they pulled it off, I think it was right. I think it was.
Yeah.
Right.
You wouldn't change anything in terms of like how it was done, like not in terms of the organizations, but in terms of like the festivities. And
well, we have personal preferences, right? So did everything align with my personal preferences? Like if I wanted to learn more about the Lightning Network, like we were talking about stuff, and that wasn't as readily available. So for me personally, I would change that. But that doesn't mean that 50% of the crowd wouldn't want that. Do you know what I mean? So it's hard for me to gauge that. But in my personal opinion, yeah, I would have liked easier access or more straightforward access to some other topics. But I think doesn't necessarily make a better conference.
And I think you're probably not in the minority. I think that there's a lot more people that are thinking like you. Now, what we're dealing with here is a centralized conference. You have people that are on a board making decisions. And of course, you're going to have people that have their own self-interest and interest for the greater good of their organization. But ultimately, it's a centralized body that we're dealing with. And they're going to make decisions that are best for them, not for everybody else.
It's frustrating, though. Like Bitcoin Magazine knows that Andrew Yang is not... Like he can say Bitcoin in his stump speeches, but UBI and Bitcoin are incompatible.
I love the fact that you guys are so steadfast in your beliefs on this. Like I kind of like to hear that for sure. Okay. Next one, interest rates.
Love it.
When I say interest rates now, what comes to mind for you guys? Anything? Just what crosses
borrowing costs, borrowing for paying for homes with mortgages and servicing debt, because that's really what it's going to impact us on a daily basis. That's how I see it.
But it's more than that, though.
Oh, for sure. I mean, the government is now going to also service that. It's going to impact their ability to spend money.
The debt service is big. The other thing about interest rates that I don't think enough people talk about is it affects everyone knows what the wealth effect is. Your house is worth more. You spend more money. You have a tendency to spend more on discretionary stuff. When the interest rate goes up, your house, supposed to anyway. We'll see if that actually happens. Drops in value, or at least the rate at which it's accelerating in value slows down, and then you don't spend as much. That affects discretionary. We already have a problem with discretionary because of the lockdowns and the sort of fluctuation in employment status for 25% of Canadians, probably maybe more. So interest rates rising is going to have a real negative effect in a way it hasn't before. The other thing I would say, and I told you this before, I don't know if you still feel the same way, but interest rates are going up. But you know what else is going up? The amount of free money you can get from the Fed here and in America as well. Ontario's about to lower their overnight electricity rates to basically nothing.
Yeah, did you know that?
Yeah,
I missed that one.
You got your sticker.
You guys better start mining Bitcoin at 2.5% per kilowatt hour.
2.5 cents. A kilowatt.
Mining Bitcoin is a no-brainer. Even
Maybe we are mining Bitcoin.
mine more.
So you got that. You got all this stuff coming.
Certain things we don't talk about. Certain things you don't talk about.
Smart. So you got all these things coming now, right? So what is an interest rate hike at, as you guys mentioned, $12 on every 100,000 at a quarter point? If you're getting $100 more a month through subsidy, did the interest rate really go up, or is it just window dressing? Are you still having the same problem you had before? You're having the same problem. People are maybe looking at it differently. They feel better about voting for a certain party because they got the money with that guy's face on it or girl's face on it. But I don't know. Until the rates are up materially and it causes
newer people into the market, it is going to hit them, especially if they go fixed rate.
Sure, when
they've been in the market only 2 or 3 years, and now they have to renew it like 4%.
So here's a question for you guys on the real estate side: if you were signing a mortgage today, would you do variable or fixed?
Oh, always variable.
Yeah.
Always.
That's what I did too.
York University did a huge study. It ended in year 2000 or something, but they went back into the 70s. So I think it was like a 25-year period. There was just like a 2-year window in the 80s where it was better to go fixed. Every other year it was better to go variable. Variable is always the way to go, especially in an environment with this much debt.
But the last 2 years was last 3 or 4 years was like that, because I think
so last 2 years have been interesting because the fixed rate was so close to the variable.
Yeah.
We always tell people the fixed rate is like buying insurance.
Yeah, but the discount on the variable was large. So even though it looked the same on paper, when you actually went to the mortgage broker, you were getting variable rate mortgages at 1.2%.
You got it.
Yeah.
Whereas the fixed was closer to 2%.
So some people have a 1% discount on the bank prime. So even though bank prime's up now, it's 1% discounted off that. They're still in the one. They're probably at a 1.7%. What's bank prime right now? 2.7? No, 3.2. I don't even know what bank prime is. Right
it just changed recently.
We talked about it.
Yeah. I just have to point out, Joey, they have the block clock over there. I'm not sure if you see it. I keep my eye on the price of Bitcoin.
So the interest rate thing is
it's funny. One time I was sitting here and I was watching it go up above and below like the $800 billion mark. I was like, just watching it the whole time. Oh, it's over 800 billion market cap, below 800 billion, over, below. And then I looked up and it was like 780. I'm like, oh shit, what happened to the price? But on interest rates, to your point, they can't. This half point interest rate move, it's still BS.
It's peanuts.
And the reason why is because inflation's so high, the real rates are still so negative.
Yeah.
So even the person that Tom, to your point, you're right. When people have to pay their monthly bills, that matters. However, if they can make those payments and figure out a way to do it, they still finish ahead because we're in such a negative rate environment that their debt ultimately is being
I just think some of Joey's friends in their 30s are going to say rates are going up, Joey. I don't know.
Well, my friends are very risk averse. I know that that's the wrong way to act financially at my age. Probably till you're 40 almost, you should be taking home run swings. At least that's how I view things. And the variable rate mortgages are one of the easiest ways to, like you guys pointed out there, come out ahead. I mean, man, the other thing I would say is, like, if you can't stomach a 25 basis point hike, you're fucked anyway.
But they do the stress test now, and that should accommodate that even a small.
But
beyond that,
it doesn't.
You were saying 50 basis points is. I mean, I'm going to put words in your mouth. You're saying it's fuck all, right? So the best
is a different term, but
right?
Yeah, I got
you. We're very polite. We never swear. Okay.
So I guess as a central banker, the best time to have raised the rates would have been yesterday, and the second best time would be today. What would be then, in your eyes, would you raise it even higher than 50 basis points? Because there would be quite a shock to the market if you raise it even higher.
No, I think they're screwed. Like I think they've painted themselves in a corner. They're totally screwed. I think they had to do this to save face, and they have to talk about interest rate hikes multiple going forward again to build confidence in themselves. But I personally feel they want this inflation. They want these negative rates. Otherwise, they know from history they're screwed because of the debt levels they have. So they need these debt levels to go down, and they want to inflate them away. So they're saying one thing, but they're doing the other. The only reason it was at 50 basis points is because they're just like, guys, if we don't do this, people are going to be like, start looking at us like, what the hell are you guys doing? So it's literally to save face. But what are real rates right now? They're still -5, -6%.
Yeah.
Like
it's got a ways to catch up, and I don't think we'll ever get to a point where it will equalize to zero. because the economy wouldn't be able to stomach that much of a raise in that short a period.
Well,
of
think
time.
about
Yeah,
you guys.
yeah,
mentioned
I
before.
agree. I agree.
agree.
I agree with you wholeheartedly.
You guys mentioned before, like we talked about this on the stream we just did on Monday, that the rates are going up 50 basis points. The debt to income ratio in Canada is at an all-time high. More and more people are finding that their wages are not keeping up with inflation. Inflation is a number that's basically a funhouse, Mary. It's never going to be the number that's actually happening. And all these things together, are you really telling me that the Bank of Canada is going to raise enough to make a difference into that environment? There's just no way. There's just no way.
They'll make a difference. It'll hurt some people.
It'll hurt some, but
it's
I
not-
see what
yeah.
Joey's
You know what I
saying.
mean?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Like in the grand scheme,
Yeah.
they're in a corner, like you
They're
said.
in a corner.
And it's everywhere. It's not just here. It's everywhere.
It's global.
You know, we did some numbers, and I don't have them handy, but we went back to, what was it, 1970 or something? We took the average purchase price and the posted rate at the time. So it's not an exact science, right? We took the average home purchase price in the Toronto area, took the average posted rate and worked out the mortgage payment on that. When we did that, and then adjusted for inflation dollars. Okay. We did it in 5-year increments up to 2020. So the last 2 years, when we did it up to the last 2 years, it really throws it out of whack. But up to 2020, it's very interesting to see that the actual inflation adjusted dollar amount as a payment on the mortgage didn't go up that much. It probably went up. I think it was 40 or 50%. I have to pull them up again. We talked about them. So it's a chunk, but it's for that many years. Yeah. But it's because rates have come down so much that people have been able to afford these homes.
You know, there's another
consistently
variable to
afford these
consider too.
homes.
You have two people working instead of one person typically in that time too. So that 50% could easily be.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No. That whole. Yeah,
And what did the
100%.
property prices do over that time?
Yeah, property.
Yeah,
prices,
exactly.
Yeah. I forget them, but it's just interesting because everyone says, if people leave school and they can't afford a house and stuff like that, and they're right, except when you're in like our parents would have said the same thing about us where house prices were when we were leaving school, right? And I agreed last year's has totally messed stuff up. So let's remove that. Let's go back 2 years just for argument's sake. The thing is, when it's a changing game, you never know what the rules are going to be, and that's where the challenge lies. Because if they're going to mess with rates more or they mess with amortizations, that argument might not hold weight because people can still, they might take.
Yeah, we're pretty convinced their next move is to extend amortization.
Yeah,
For sure.
It might take
Yeah.
50
Sure
years
they
to
will.
pay off their
100%,
mortgage,
yeah.
but then
You're not hearing
house.
about it now. Give it the
Yeah.
next election when Trudeau comes to the table and says, well, you know what? We've tried everything. Hasn't worked to save the Canadian for the Canadian to be able to afford their own home. We're going to have a first-time home buyer program, and behind the scenes, it'll be amortizations to 40 years or 50 years.
50?
Yeah.
Well, why not?
Wow.
I'm a
I know. I
politician.
see where you're coming
I'm
from.
not saying
What
it's
can
the
you
right
get-
move.
What
I'm
can
not
you get in
saying
the
it's the
States
right
right now? You can get 30 in the States right now.
You
Can
can
you
get,
not?
you can get
30.
30 yes.
See, so-
30.
30, you lock in the rate for 30 years.
Yeah.
There's no renewal, right?
Right.
So that is good politics, bad policy. That's
Yeah, of course.
Oh,
And the other thing,
that's 50%.
whenever you
of
see
75% what they do.
stats comparing Canadian debt levels to American debt levels, understand that we always get about a percentage lower mortgage rates here in this country than the U.S. So if we're paying bank prime, I just checked, is 3.2 with a 1% discount, it's 2.2%. The U.S. is usually always getting a percent higher. So, if we're getting 3.2, they're getting 4.2. If you're getting a fixed rate here at 4%, they're getting 5%. That changes how much debt you can carry. I'm not saying it's a good thing that we can carry more debt here, but we always have lower rates here. It's never discussed in the media. But our mortgage rates here are always lower than Americans. It just allows us to carry more debt. So you see those income to debt ratios are always skewed, but our carrying costs are probably, I would love to see the carrying costs on debt as an average of Canadian compared to American, because I bet they're like much closer
That's good
than
info
the
right
debt.
Do you feel
Yeah.
we're at a point?
And no one discusses
That's
that. I'm
good
always
info.
like, why does no
I
one
didn't know
discuss that?
because it's not included in any of the stories about it. I didn't
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're still
Well, we
screwed.
did-
Don't
we
get
just
us wrong. We're still. It's the numbers aren't good. It's
Oh,
not
yeah.
like it's like
We're not justifying anything.
everything's okay. It's no problem. It can keep going from here. No, we're not saying that. But everything's got to be taken in context, right?
There's so
And
much.
do you feel we're at a point where we could actually reverse the roles and that we could actually turn the tables and we're no longer screwed? Can we? Is there a point that we could say
No.
It's
Well, it
basically
depends
it's
on
done.
how much we rob
the
people through
system's
inflation.
gone.
So
We're past the point of no return.
So what is the next step at that point? Because we're going to
it's
oblivion.
ugly. The
Okay.
next step is ugly. No, we're on the same path as you. Like, we're agreeing with you.
No, you have a different perspective than I because you guys know way more about homes than I will ever know.
Oh, in real estate specifically, we both feel that it's amortizations. That's
Amortizations.
Look, the NDP already ran on it. We were talking about it before, and we laughed when we saw it in the NDP campaign in the fall. If you look at it, one of their points for their housing plan was extending amortizations. So what's funny is now that they've joined with the Liberals, I'm like, well, if they stay together for 3 more years,
there's not a card they're playing.
There's a few more budgets coming down the pipe. The budget right before the next election. I don't know.
And they won't call it that. They'll call it, we're helping the first-time home buyer.
First-time home buyer rescue plan.
Yeah, I like
this.
Save you.
This is good. Yeah.
Are you guys running for politics?
No.
the way you guys are talking.
Don't want that job. No. Are you kidding me?
But there was something else I was going to say there. The way I see the world evolving, this is my own take, is I'd like to just go to a Bitcoin standard. You want to spend money, save it. Have you heard of the concept of saving? Save the money. But I don't think we're going to just flip over suddenly. But I do think when we go to Croatia, it's very common to carry the local currency. It's called the kuna. Have you heard of it?
No.
No, exactly. You carry the kuna. Nobody trusts the kuna. So you also carry euros. So you carry the kuna and euros. If you're from Canada, you probably also have some Canadian dollars. So everybody walks around there with 2 or 3 currencies in their pocket. Okay? That's normal. In Canada, do you do that? No.
Not yet.
You carry nothing.
This is my point.
You carry it's all electronic
think about
right now.
But think about it now. You know how Ledin has a USDC savings account at 9% interest? I think it just got lowered to 9% or something.
I think it's at 8 now.
Is it 8?
Yeah, it's lower. It's still great.
It's still great. But more and more people I speak to are like, hey, maybe I'll
Can you stop hitting your mic? If I kept hitting the mic like that, you're looking crazy.
Can I persuade you to never use USDC?
He always, no. But I think the bigger point I'm trying to make here, and we can have that talk. The bigger point I'm trying to make is that more Canadians than ever that I'm speaking to are saying, you know what? I'm going to hold some of my liquid but medium-term savings in American dollars. I'm going to have some Canadian dollars, super liquid. I'm going to have some American dollars, medium-term liquidity.
Don't you guys
some
buy
Bitcoin.
American dollars when the price is right on the exchange? I know my father's been doing that for a long time.
Not too much.
Sometimes here and there.
No,
but
not something we've done.
I thought that was
and then Bitcoin savings. Longer term, right? And I can see that coming to Canada, where more and more of us are going to have Canadian dollars, American dollars, Bitcoin, and you're going to have multiple, I don't want to call Bitcoin a currency, but just going to multiple stores of value.
Why can't Bitcoin be a currency?
Sure. No, because I hate currencies so much that I don't want to call Bitcoin a currency.
It could function as a number of different.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just another spendable asset, right? That's all. I think that's the first time I've heard this amortization. I gotta stomach that one on my drive home. But that's interesting stuff. I didn't know the NDP had that in their platform. And sure, now that they're bedfellows with the libs,
comes out. Okay, so that was interest rates. The next thing I want to
tell me when the next election is. Spring of that year. I'm calling it now. They're announcing it spring of that year.
2025.
Next year.
No, when's the next election?
2025.
Okay, so spring. The budget for spring 2025. That's being announced.
You think it'll be that? Yeah. Yeah.
Or in their platform. I might get it wrong by a season. It might be announced in the fall as part of the
platform.
But that's what I'm calling.
But okay, so I don't know what I want to go next. Real estate. What are your thoughts on real estate? You're the Canadian Bitcoiners.
Oh man,
speak your truth.
I view real estate as a good investment. Honestly, I got a lot of exposure to real estate through my father. He owns a number of properties. Hamilton, did rentals near Mac, much like you guys for a time. I don't see the downside really. I know a lot of people say, well, the government can tax that. They can take it away from you other ways. There's always going to be, the potential for example, especially these days, like price controls in real estate markets, especially for rental market. But at the same time, I can't in good faith say Bitcoin really works because of the scarcity and because of the utility. And then also say that, much like many of my Bitcoin colleagues would say, it's a shitcoin. It's garbage.
Got it. I thought you were alluding to that when you said over the next 40 years, you're not so sure about real estate.
I'm not so sure about the stock market.
I think it's an ETF.
Oh,
yeah, real
got
estate.
It. Okay.
Real estate, I would feel pretty good about. I think I look at, my wife and I live in Hamilton. We want to move to, try not to fall out of your chairs, Dundas.
What's wrong with Dundas?
That's a
nice.
spot.
It's great, except for the price of every home. So you move to a place the size of this office, it's $1 million plus. So you got all these sort
Are you
of.
trying to say my office is small here?
I'm saying
you're saying this room is small.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, this is my office.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm saying many things, but
Yeah,
anyway, okay. I would note that real estate, like I said to you before, you hold real estate for your entire life. It's not the same home, hopefully, but it'll perform well for you, and that real estate value, from like a government economic standpoint, it has to appreciate, because if it doesn't and you retire and you're looking for to downsize and pull some of that equity through a sale or pull some through a HELOC or whatever, and you don't have it, what are you going to do? All the discretionary spending in this country comes from old people. So what's the plan for all this money that, you know, is going to groceries, going to transportation or travel, I should say, all this stuff, right? If you don't have that available to you, where are you going to get it? Not your pension, I don't think.
Got it. Okay, so
you know why real estate is a good investment? It's because a report came out, I think just yesterday, that 20% of MPs own a second piece of real estate.
I saw that.
I think that number is low, because there's got to be a lot of companies out there that are, you know, shell companies that probably own property on their behalf that's not being reported. So I think that number might be a little low.
Well, we were expecting them to announce larger down payments for investors.
And we were shocked that they
didn't announce it.
They can't. They can't.
Yeah, they want to buy more.
But at the same time, you're thinking they can't. We know they can't, but we didn't think they were that smart. We're like, oh, okay, so they're in tune to the real estate market.
I love that.
But real estate, really, what it represents is old school money. Because if you have real estate, it's taking advantage of older economics. You can't be a new person coming to Canada. You can't be somebody that's 18, 19, 20 and have an idea, I'm going to buy a home in the next few years. Screw that. It's never going to happen unless you get a lot of help from family or friends.
Yeah, but it does happen for some people too. Like, we can't talk in absolutes, and I'll say this because one of the guys that works in our office immigrated from India now, probably 4 years ago or so, and he bought his place 2 years ago or a year and a half ago or whatever.
Without getting into specifics, was it in combination with other family members?
No.
Because it's typical in that
community,
which works really well.
They bought their place. They moved to Oakville, actually.
You guys are paying well over here.
But we hear what you're saying. Like, we get
I agree
the point.
with you.
Yeah. We also know somebody who slept in his uncle's basement. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah.
Arvin slept in his uncle's basement for how many years working at Tim Hortons, saving every single dollar.
Yeah, he lived off
and then
something.
did buy his own place.
Like
but I know your point.
$250
We
a
get your
month.
point.
And you can't do that today, because if you do that without making some really wild investments and hoping those investments pan out, the money's never going to catch up to the rising cost of homes.
Yeah, right now it's got aggressive. Last couple of years, there's no doubt.
So you're outside looking in. So real estate it's old school.
It's
economics.
one way. It's old. It's interesting you say it that way, because it's a way to really benefit from the old school system. Because if you can get in, you're refinancing. You're using debt. Right. The debt gets smaller. There's a percentage.
Where you're creating money.
You're basically creating money.
You get to print your own money.
You're creating fiat dollars.
The other thing about real estate from a Bitcoin lens is, you know, Bitcoiners talk a lot about the monetization of non-monetary assets as evidence that inflation has really taken hold. Like, people talk a lot about real estate being one of those assets. The reason the price of real estate is so high is because people would rather be there than in cash or in stocks or in anything. And, you know, also I just think if you look across the asset spectrum, people would literally, instead of saving cash, instead of saving any currency at all, no matter what the country, no matter the denomination, there's people out there who would rather park it in like fermenting grapes in a fruit cellar and hope for it to stay valuable.
Sure. Yeah.
Incredible. People are like, yeah, this is normal. Yeah, grapes for sure.
Well, look what's happened with look at
fucking grapes, man. Wine. Are you kidding?
But we had a discussion about watches. Like, look at the watch.
Yeah.
It's for a Rolex. It's a waiting list, and then there's the ones that I don't know the market well, but I'm not a watch guy. But it was like the ones that were 20 grand 2 years ago are 50 grand now, and you're like, what? So like, there's a waiting list to spend 20 grand on a watch or 50 grand. This is, so to your point, it's like the most, I'm not a watch guy, so I don't get that world, you know, but I understand.
I have a friend who is, that's
a
different world that I cannot get. And when, he shows me his watches, his 15 grand watch, it's a watch, for God's sake.
Yeah, to me, I'm like, oh, I don't know, $1,000. It's a nice one, so it must be that one's $1,500.
You're showing him the Bitcoin price. He's thinking the same thing back to you.
He didn't buy Bitcoin.
So I want to ask you that. When people say Bitcoin price volatility, what comes to mind for you guys, or how do you?
I got to say, these are great notes you have here. We got to start doing our notes like
2-word notes.
No, I never have notes.
I have notes. What are you talking
The weird
about?
part is I never have notes for anyone. For some reason, for you guys, I have notes. It's so weird.
Bitcoin price volatility is honestly not that big a deal.
I'm looking at it right now. It's actually pretty stable.
I think if you look at where most people have been parking their money over the last 2 years, 3 years since COVID, let's talk about the stuff that really made headlines, right? GameStop, how'd that go? A lot of volatility there. I didn't hear anyone complaining. In fact, the government stepped in to make sure the volatility was only going down on you at one point.
They really did.
Yeah, right. So that's one thing. Look at the FanMag stocks, right? Unless you're in Apple, basically over the last 3 years, you've taken a pretty big haircut off the all-time high. Microsoft, Amazon, Netflix today just had their second straight, following a quarterly earnings call, second straight 35% down day. So 35% after their call in January, 35% today. So if you
They were almost $700, and now they're
200,
220-ish.
So how's that volatility? I didn't see anyone talking about that in the news. Okay, that volatility is important. Also, I don't see anyone talking about volatility when Bitcoin price rips on adoption news or Tesla news, or everyone just doesn't talk about it at all. It's a scam. It's a self pump and dump, whatever, self-promotion. The volatility goes both ways. I would also argue that the most volatile asset, again, only in one direction over the last 100 years, is any currency that you have going to zero. Even by the Federal Reserve's own admission in the States, your dollar over the last 100 years has lost about 95%, 99% of its purchasing power. Okay, well, I didn't hear anything about that volatility. How's that volatility treating me? Not so good. The volatility piece is a wedge into a conversation about risk. Should you have to take risk in the stock market to protect the money that you earn with your finite time? The answer is no. But we all just accept it not because you think it's legit. No one thinks it's legit. Everyone does it because they think they might hit it big. And that little bit of hope is enough for people to play this game. It shouldn't be. And that's another thing I think government's worried about is people are going to be like, wait a minute, are you telling me I got to work at Tim Hortons to your buddy there who's living in his uncle's basement? You're telling me not only do I have to live in my uncle's basement and subsist on a diet of ramen and sriracha every day, but also I have to gamble on the stock market? I got to play this game with these levers where, Jerome Powell gets on TV. If he has gas one day and makes a face at the wrong time, the market tanks. How's that fair? This stuff is all connected, right? And so the volatility thing, I think for me, is like a way to get into people's skin about this risk thing that they're just like, they're happy to play along with until they start to think about it a different way.
There's 2 points I have to bring up. Number one, it's only been 13 years since we've mined our first block, a little bit over 13 years. It's still really young. So everything that young, you're going to have some wild swings. That's the first point. The second point, I have to ask you a question before I continue. Have you guys sold any Bitcoin that you ever bought?
No.
Okay, so you value your Bitcoin, and to value.
So happy to say that too.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So the fact that you haven't sold any of your Bitcoin means that you have not reached a point that you want to sell. So maybe trading right now at $41,000, but it's not $41,000 in your eyes, or my eyes. I don't even know what the price is in my eyes, but we're nowhere near what it is. So it may be trading at that price, but that is not reflective of what we think it is. And a lot of Bitcoiners like us think the same way. So that is not volatility right now. It's not volatility because we haven't gotten to a point where we think we're actually going to be spending it or maybe even using it like in a Bitcoin backed mortgage, for instance. That's when you actually have usability at a price that you think that you could actually use it. So there's no volatility.
Before I forget, what were you going to tell me about USDC?
Oh yeah, USDC.
How long you got?
No, I'll be very, very brief on this.
Who knew? I didn't know what rabbit hole I was stepping into.
So what makes Bitcoin...
Joey just leaned back.
No, I'm going to be quick. What makes Bitcoin so good is that you can't censor it. So if you put your Bitcoin on your wallet, there's nothing I could do, Joey, or any government can do to stop you from taking that Bitcoin out of your wallet because that is yours. That is your keys. You own it. Plain and simple, it's decentralized and you can't censor it. The same can't be said about USDC. If they wanted to, not that they are, but if they wanted to, they could blacklist certain wallets. And if they do that, that particular USDC is null and void going forward. So if, for example, if a greater entity realizes you did something and they weren't agreeing with what you've done, they could blacklist your USDC.
Why is Joey laughing at this so much?
Because I don't want to get...
I've just heard so many different ways to describe government, like greater entities.
Got it.
So you know what I'm getting at. So you may have participated.
Yeah, that's pretty shitty. And I guess Bitcoin can't be blacklisted right now because there's no centralized place it's going through. Whereas USDC is run by Circle.
Yes.
There can be a blacklisting of it. But I'm just trying to think out loud here. Bitcoin doesn't have a central authority it's going through.
It can't. That's the way it's built. And your node right there is verifying transactions that are done all through the world.
Didn't I read somewhere about the fungibility of it can be altered or something can happen?
In USDC?
No, with Bitcoin. So sorry, I'm switching the conversation to Bitcoin now. Can it be blacklisted at all?
No.
Well, it could be
Maybe
to the exchanges. They could go to all, so in Canada they could blacklist the wallet address if they
Okay, no,
decided,
from that point of view.
right. But I could still send you some directly. And
Sure.
you can give me Canadian dollars if I needed it.
Yeah.
Right. But they could blacklist you from the exchanges.
And there's nothing they can do to take it away from you and preventing you from spending that onto Bitcoin or exchanging that.
They could lock you in a room and make you give up your keys.
Aside from them taking a gun to your head and saying, "Tell me the keys
shit,
that are in
Len.
your head," that is the only way they could do it. And without that,
Yeah.
So you think that's not possible?
That's nice. That's a nice.
I'm not going to go down that path.
That's a nice feature to have that they can't really do that. But USDC, it's much easier. Okay,
It's
got it.
centralized.
Yeah.
So you-
No, good point.
You always
Yeah.
have the threat
Yeah,
of your savings.
It's almost
being
like
locked up
a
somehow.
cash American dollar is better because it's still anonymous and you
Right,
can kind of spend it. But USDC can just be clamped down. And
This goes for any custodial asset.
Yeah.
USDC, your bank account,
Gold. Good point.
gold. But
Good
if you got your own and you got a node, you're cooking with gas after that.
What about when I say education? What comes to mind for you guys? Any form of education, whatever comes to
Now
mind.
this is more your because this is his. He
it?
went to school for this.
Okay.
And so you should actually.
I did go to teachers college. Yeah, I don't like teachers. I love kids; they're great, but I don't want to be involved with teachers or the education system. Yeah,
So you went to teachers college but didn't become a teacher?
yeah. I went in the States it was a year-long program. Incredible that I couldn't get into a school here, but I can go over to the U.S., get my designation, then come back here and teach. So talk about saturating the market. Anyway, story for another time. The education bit of Bitcoin, man. Like I would say, I look at like what we're doing here, right? You guys got a show on real estate, more or less. I don't want to keep saying that. I don't want to paint you into a corner, but like your show is real estate focused. It's Southern Ontario focused. But on any given week, I could turn it on and listen to like our buddy Jordan talking about Bitcoin, or Lynn Alden talking about Bitcoin, Greg Foss talking about Bitcoin, you guys spitballing about Bitcoin, macro, things that matter.
Foss
for
is
Bitcoin,
coming back
right?
next week.
Nice.
I mean,
Tell them we said hi.
Well,
Yeah.
for sure.
So like you got all these different available options now. Whatever your flavor is, if you like the way our show is formatted with a news item and commentary, you get that. If you want to hear this spitball, natural flowing conversation, you get that too. These are options that are available. The thing that I think is more relevant now than ever is this thing I heard from Breedlove once upon a time. Me and him were on the same panel on BTC Sessions.
Oh, cool.
Christmas show.
Awesome.
And so we were talking about how do we educate people. And the guy brought up a great point. I was saying that people are going to educate themselves through this pain they're feeling in their day-to-day life, right? Their dog food's more expensive. They can't afford their mortgage, whatever. And Breedlove was saying, you're right, pain is information. And people haven't received that kind of information in most of the modern world in a long time. Not like this. Not the way they're about to. You guys are talking about bumpy roads and riots and stuff like that. If it gets there, I don't know. But certainly it's fair to say that it's a lot closer to that outcome now than it was 3 years ago, than it was 10 years ago, et cetera, right? So the education, comes through pain as well. Finally, I'll just say that, man, be a Bitcoin node for your friends, for the people in your life. Act in a way that reflects well in the Bitcoin space. You're carrying the banner, man. That's you're wearing the jersey. And so if you're wearing the jersey and we get on our podcast, right? And like my fucking Twitter account is constantly blasting people with a BMI over 25 or 28 or 30. And I get some shit for it, but I say, look, I'm telling you that my time preference is this, and I act in a way that reflects that time preference. I'm telling you that I think it's important to live healthy. I act in a way that's healthy. I tell you that I spend time with my wife and my dog. I don't spend time fucking around on my relationship, on my family, my friends. That's important to me. I think that one of the best things about the Bitcoin space is that you're going to find that kind of thinking all over the place. That kind of thinking really helps you during times, for example, when I tore my Achilles tendon, really helps you because there are people who reached out to me who I've never met before, telling me, here's what I heard about this, here's what I know. A couple of PTs reached out, like, here's what I would do if I was you guys. This is a community that really cares about each other. And if you care about the mission, you're going to get it back in spades. And that's the kind of thing that really builds strong relationships in a community as tight as Bitcoin. That kind of education you can't get anywhere else. Knowing that you're going to get support if you act a way that's beneficial for the mission. I don't think you get that in XRP and Ripple. I would guess that in real estate, there's a lot more sharks in the water than there are in Bitcoin.
Oh God.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean? It's much more zero sum than Bitcoin is. And that's the kind of thing. It's irreplaceable in other disciplines. I think.
You haven't touched much on traditional education, which is a fucking business.
You're in. I mean, you got a young daughter, and we talk about this off the air all the time. Like, I don't know if you want to talk about it on the air, but
I kind of just put him on the spot.
yeah. Education is failing. It's failing. We bring in some of the worst educators anywhere in the modern world in this country and in this province, and there's no doubt. You look at the standardized testing scores in the province. They're atrocious. We got
the math skills coming up.
It's unbelievable.
The written word, we're hiring people and the emails that we get in, the written communication that we see, abysmal.
Of course.
Like, what did you think of my emails? Were they on par?
I think Anthony was getting those. I'm not sure. No, I think you sent me one.
Did I? I can't even remember.
So
it was a solid B+.
When you look at education, you look at some of the testing scores that kids are being told are substantially or sufficient, I guess, for their point in life, right? The math scores are terrible, etc. I would just say if you want to know where this comes from, you could point to the teachers union pretty squarely. That'd be a good place to start. When Ford, who is my friend now that we're talking about this, tried to introduce math literacy for teachers.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Do you remember the outrage from teachers
right.
about how they didn't want to pass?
Oh my gosh.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Could you imagine now a world where if you didn't have to work 50 hours a week to get by, you could spend some time teaching your kids things that are important, math, language, arts, whatever, right? Pass along the expertise that you gained as a young adult, as a child, as a grown man in the world where, like you said, lots of sharks, okay? You made it. If you could pass that along, you wouldn't need the teachers union. And so this idea that the 50-hour work week is like an accident, I think is completely bullshit. But that aside, education in the province and in the country has become a business.
Worldwide. Don't just
it's
localize
everywhere.
it.
It's become a business for the unions more than anything. And also, you know, there's no benefit to really succeeding now. University is not a club for people who are successful anymore. I was just on the Brock University website last week. You need a 70 average to get into Brock.
Which program?
Any of them. You got to have a 70 average baseline. That you can't get in anything with anything below a 70.
But it can't be across the board.
No, you know what I mean though, right? And so should someone with a 70 average be able to, you know, say that they attended university and then use that, for example, like you have to have a university degree to get a certain job? What did you really, how valuable was that degree really if you got in there with a 70 average?
Do you know why it's 70 right now? And it's kind of changing the topic slightly.
Why?
Because they stopped allowing a lot of international students coming into Canada, so it's less people applying for this.
Even still, I mean the outcome.
This is the
same.
I see your point. But on the
same.
flip side of that, I have some friends who are like below 70 students that the only reason they were below is just the school system failed them so badly.
And did they do okay outside of
like hustlers, resourceful, resilient.
And so this is what I mean. There's no real value in either the 70 or the thing the 70 gets you.
I get it. Yep, totally.
How do we get there? How do we get there?
Well, I want to just touch on the business that is universities and post-secondary school. We talked about it on our last show. We had an article that was written not too long ago that we're calling Bitcoiners psychopaths. I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah, I saw it, yeah.
And this came from Queensland University, I think was the name of the university. It's in Australia. And then on top of that, I did a little bit of digging. It turned out 3 years ago, 2019, ABC in Australia did some research. There were some courses from this university that were being funded by the Chinese government. That was a few courses back just 3 years ago. How many more are being funded now? And so you got to understand what's going on in China. It's a lot of garbage. You look at what's happening in Shanghai. You see dogs, cats being put still alive.
Cats thing's weird. Yeah.
Still alive in
totally
bags.
Weird. Yeah.
People stuck inside their homes, apartments or condos, whatever. They can't get out.
With those drones flying around saying stay in your homes or whatever. Did you see that one with the robotic dog?
As long as you say it's for your safety, then everything you're allowed to say anything afterwards.
Yeah, but honestly, we're at a state in media that I don't even know what to believe.
That's
right.
right.
I don't even know if I'm looking at
that's
China
true.
when I see those things.
I agree with that.
You could take that information and you could digest and say, this is wrong. And the people in this university, they are not digesting this information saying that the people funding the university is wrong.
Yeah.
They're taking this money and they're saying, we don't care where it's coming from. We're not going to bite the hand that feeds us. No, we're going to take this money, write a report that say Bitcoins are psychopaths. What the hell is that? Like you're doing a disservice.
Basically, all Bitcoiners took it as a compliment, though.
But you're doing a
I'm
disservice
psychopath and I'm proud.
to university. You're doing a disservice to Bitcoiners. You're doing a disservice to themselves.
Yeah.
Now you can't take those 5 people seriously moving forward. You can't take whatever is coming out of that university moving forward as serious because it doesn't. You can't. We know what's happening. Somebody's paying them to do this kind of stuff.
I think
let's follow the money.
People just want attention. Like I personally, I saw that and I just went right by it. Like it didn't even impact me.
It is funny.
For
Yeah,
a
but you
second.
think critically about stuff. I think kind of to Len's point, a lot of people see these things and they're like, yeah, those Bitcoiners. You know, it
Yeah,
does.
I
It
just,
does
I just don't know.
negatively.
I think because you're in the space, you're more hypersensitive to that, and you're seeing that. I don't.
No,
I don't
think-
care
I
if
don't think anybody
somebody
was
else-
sensitive. I actually liked it. I was like,
I don't.
you
But I
know,
don't think anyone sees it. Like I don't
Yeah.
think anyone outside the Bitcoin space
Maybe
even
that's a good
saw
point.
that
I
headline.
didn't
Yeah.
talk to anyone about it except for you.
Because
Yeah,
no one's
yeah.
seen it.
Yeah.
No one's seen it. It's just your feed's just anything Bitcoin, so you see it, but it's just nothing.
It's interesting time right now.
But I agree with what you're saying. Sorry about that, about the way universities are funded and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's
and
truly a business.
Not about even the CCP. It's more just about private companies funding them for studies and stuff. Like it's a mess.
Well, when I see my own son's in second year Western, and when I talk to him about his economics class and his different accounting classes and what they're learning there, you know, he's listening to different podcasts.
Well,
You
it's just-
guys, Michael Saylor, you know, Bree Love, Jeff Booth. He's listening to Saifedean. He's listening to all these guys.
Right.
I'm sure he's getting more valuable information because he's continuing to listen to them than, you know, the classes he's attending.
Yes.
But the classes aren't cheap.
Yeah.
And some of the stuff that he's being taught in there, I'm even looking at it going, what the? Like I'm looking at some of the economic stuff he took last semester. I'm like, you're never going to, this is useless. This is 100%, which is probably a disservice to him because here's his dad saying like, this is just pure garbage. right?
That's a
It's
fiat
not motivating.
education. That's
Yeah,
what it's all-
totally.
it's a fiat
Yeah,
education.
with the fiat mindset for
and
sure.
and it's built around, and that's fine. But unfortunately, the world is changing. And you even said it. He's getting more out of going on Twitter and listening to podcasts.
For sure.
And
which actually
so-
gives me hope for, like, I feel like your generation, we're similar in age. I'm 49. Your generation, I feel like, kind of got the short end of the stick, right? My generation could buy properties. We didn't know what we were doing. It was still expensive for us at the time, but less expensive relative to today. And we rode this incredible wave. We got lucky. Let's face it. We got lucky. You bought a bunch of properties. If you thought you were smart, I'm not really so sure. You kind of just got in at the right wave. Your generation specifically didn't really get access to that. But I feel like his generation at 20 years old, with everything that's evolving now, we didn't talk about the Lightning Network, and we're gonna have to miss that part. But the Lightning Network and all that's evolving there, I'm like, wow, these guys are walking into a future that's going to be pretty bright. Have you guys had Kevin Rook on your show?
I was just about to ask. I listened to your show with Kev. It was pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, just do you know him?
I don't know him.
I see him on Twitter.
Yeah,
often.
we
I
should
feel
have
like
him
you
on.
guys are just like the right people to have him on. And what kind of world is it where the four of us from different kind of backgrounds, different interests, here we are thinking and talking about what we think is the most important thing right now, the state of money.
Yeah.
Like it's ridiculous that we have to come together. You shouldn't be doing this right
Everyone
now. You
knows
shouldn't
it.
be doing this right now.
Everyone knows it. They just can't articulate it. And that's the thing that we got to help them with.
We're getting to a point. It's easy to find out. I think you mentioned it on your previous episode that the debt to GDP in a global scale is 4-1. I think that was
Yeah, correct.
That's incredible. People around the world are finding out that you're having central banks failing. We had 6, I think was a number in the past 2 years that failed, that defaulted on debts. That's an incredible number. The writing is on the wall. It doesn't take much to understand that the system is failing people, and people need to do something. What are they waiting for? Like the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse to come down and smite these central
You
bankers?
preach, Len.
Yeah, let's do it.
You go.
These people should be selling their kidneys, buying more Bitcoin. That's what they should be doing. What they're doing right now, they're waiting for government handouts. No, man. They got to take control of their lives. They got to get out of this fiat environment, buy Bitcoin, secure their future, sit back, and you'll be sitting
Does
pretty.
anyone want to talk to you guys at your full time, like your kind of
They hate
other
you.
roles?
They hate you guys for
we-
sure.
Listen, the reason we get asked all the time, like why we started the podcast, we talked to a grade 7 class actually about this. One of the people who listens to the show asked us to talk to their class about.
Cool.
Yeah, it was-
Awesome.
honestly, it was a really good time. And I always say the same thing. I think Len agrees. I'm going to talk to someone about this. Before the show, it was my wife, pretty one-sided. And, after her, it was
Everybody's
it was the dog,
Yeah.
one-sided. And so this is a much, better conversation than those.
Is there an episode of yours that you guys love for people just learning about this topic? Or would it be just jump into any one of your episodes any week and they're going to be able to get a taste of Bitcoin for someone just figuring this stuff out?
There's not, okay, so one of the downsides of doing a show that's news heavy is there's not a lot of evergreen content as far as
Sure.
the stories. I think the principles of hard money, you guys would agree with this, I'm sure. You're going to find something that relates to what's going on if you go a year back in the catalog. If I was a new listener, I would say jump on YouTube Monday night, talk to the people in the chat, talk to people on the street.
Because you're doing it live on
Yeah,
Monday nights.
yeah, we
What
do it
time
live.
on Mondays?
7:00.
7 o'clock Eastern
Yeah.
on Monday nights.
Yeah, and
Cool.
the chats, for like I was saying to you before the show, we get less YouTube traction than audio only. But I got to say, like the chats started out with like 5 people, 10 people, and now they're 30, 35
Oh, awesome.
or higher.
Awesome.
It's pretty good, right? For 7 o'clock on a Monday night, people would rather give their kids an iPad,
Yeah,
leave
yeah,
their
yeah,
wife
yeah.
in the other room, come shoot this shit with a bunch of strangers on YouTube.
I'd like to say there are some episodes I would suggest people consider listening to that we've done, because there are people that don't want to buy Bitcoin to spot asset, because there's some technical knowledge you have to buy it and put in a wallet. That's fine. And some people would rather just buy an ETF or maybe even a Bitcoin miner that you could get publicly traded. There's a couple of episodes I would suggest listening to. One, Ben Gagnon from Bitfarms. Listen to him. If
they go to your YouTube channel and search for Bitfarms
or Ben Gagnon.
Okay.
If you listen to him, I'm going to open up my wallet and buy more Bitfarms stock, because he is brilliant, and the way
Canadian company?
Yeah, it's Canadian, primarily based out of Quebec. Bitfarms.
Yeah.
It's one of the biggest Bitcoin miners out there.
Okay.
And not only that, DMG blockchain, Sheldon Bennett was really good. I like that one. And a couple others, like
The CEOs and the people that we get on the show, if you want to talk about like the guests that we really liked, if you want to start with a place where you'll build some technical knowledge, and also if you're sort of a business mind, we've had a couple of good CEOs that have both the business side of the operation down and the technical side as well. So they'll talk to you about hash rate, the importance of energy procurement, things like that. And then also talk to you about what it's like to do a capital raise in 2021.
So this Bitfarms episode, this is what you talk about?
Bitfarms is one.
Okay.
DMG is another.
Another good one, if to learn about Bitcoin that is not bad for the environment, listen to Giga Energy's
Brent Whitehead.
Yeah.
That's one of your episodes.
Young man from Texas, just built a Bitcoin mine on the field.
Your YouTube channel name?
Canadian Bitcoiners.
So just search Canadian Bitcoiners and you guys are going to come up. That's how I found you on YouTube. And then you could subscribe there.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what else? On audio, same thing, Canadian Bitcoiners on all kind of the audio platforms.
Wherever you get your podcasts.
On your Twitter stuff's hilarious. I've just started tracking you guys on Twitter. You guys make me laugh. I don't know even why this guy's squatting, calling out some haters, but apparently some people are just like, and did you put his face? Kind of looked creepy, man. I don't know. Who put your face like with a hoodie?
Oh,
walking away from the squat rack or something. I was like,
we do some other stuff with a channel in the States, Green Candle Investments.
Okay.
And so we do the Friday space with them on macro and stocks and Bitcoin. And
got it.
Those guys are giving me shit because when I tore my leg up, they're going, it's never gonna be the same size by June 30th. I said, you fucking watch me.
Yeah, got it. Okay, so he's squatting and then like shit posting them about some shit.
I got a question for you two gentlemen now. CBDCs. This is a topic that's near and dear to my heart.
Sure.
Have either of you, do you know about them? Have you heard about them? What are your thoughts on them? I'd love to hear what somebody else has to say.
If you think USDC is something that you don't like, CBDCs
I don't think they're going to pull them off
level.
in North America. I just don't think they're going to pull them off. I think
100%
they
they
want to. I think in Europe has the culture where it's very social. It's much more socialist, where they'll be much more accepting of the government taking more control over certain aspects of their economy. Europe for sure, CBDCs. In North America with the US, and I think Canada, we're kind of like 50-50. I'm not sure they pull it off. What I think they'll do instead, heavily regulate USDCs and USDC or other similar stable coins, and that becomes their weapon of choice. And they'll be able to blacklist, and they'll be able to do all.
They're going to give them a lot of control by doing that.
I don't know how much control, because I think they can really.
If they regulate it and $1, it's $1 for dollar.
If they
don't
just
give up that
phone
much
circle
control.
and say, "Hey, blacklist Len."
Yeah.
I'll give you a different way of looking at it. They're investing some money into doing research for CBDCs, and I'm talking about the Bank of Canada. So they've locked into an agreement with
MIT.
Yes,
well, we're watching.
So
we're on the same page.
They're going down this path here where they're gathering information.
But they have to waste money on it. They waste money on everything. They might do 100 studies.
I just think they're so stupid. They won't be able to.
No. I have a sneaky suspicion there's going to be a pilot project that they're going to be rolling out with CBDCs in the next 2 years. I think that they will have.
You could be right. I mean, there is a pilot project
There was
coming.
job postings for their CBDC people 2 years ago. The job postings for CBDC started in fall 2020.
And the reason why I think they're going to do this is because it's advantageous for them to go ahead with this.
Oh, for sure.
It gives them not only, I talked about a measure of control that they don't have right now, but it also makes it easy for taxation purposes. You could tax it to source.
No, it's brilliant.
And it's easy for them to gather more revenue, which a lot of revenue could be potentially lost when there's under the sale. When you go buy stuff on Kijiji, it's all cash.
But if they get a digital ID in place, that gives them more power too, because they just
Which
shut
seems like
down
it's
your
coming-
driver's license and your passport and everything
Well,
else.
did you see the Pearson Airport, Air Canada, and I think like the World Economic Forum?
they're asking
they're
for it.
partnering together. They're going to do digital IDs at Pearson. We're going to be a pilot.
It's all going that
So
way.
why wouldn't they do a CBDC and tie all
no,
this
if they
shit
tie
together?
that together, my God.
I think we can get it in Canada easier than the States. And I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
that's why-
agreed.
That's why like,
Agreed.
the structure of the U.S. a little bit better, especially even when you were talking to minors. Yeah, they can be regular ESG, blah, blah, blah. But in the States,
How are they going to do it in the
have
States
more
when Texas is going to
independency.
say fuck?
That's what I'm saying.
Wyoming will probably say.
But if you're going to have
forget
to
it.
use U.S. dollars, if you want it to function using U.S. dollars, you're going to have to then adopt or not. I mean, bend your knee and say, I'm going to use CBDC.
But if CBDCs come out, you're basically, depending on how they implement it, you're wiping out the commercial banking system. Because right now the commercial banking system is the distribution of new fiat dollars. So you're basically going to say, okay, all you commercial banks, you're fucked. Or they implement it in some way that goes through the commercial banking system that I can't figure out.
yes, I'm on that side.
Whether
I'm not so sure. I just think the lobbyists of the commercial banking in the U.S. is going to go for this.
They're going to get their slice of the pie.
Yeah,
somehow. I'm not sure how it's going to be.
Agreed, and
But it's a bad idea. There's nothing good.
nothing
about
good.
So with that being said, why wouldn't anybody go out and buy Bitcoin when you could be sheltered from this garbage? It makes no sense. People wouldn't buy so much more Bitcoin based on the fact that I think
most Canadians are.
Everyone's got different problems in their lives.
Yeah.
Like some people might have a bigger problem than thinking about the CBDCs
That's
coming
true.
up.
That's true.
I
They
think
might
we're
be like, hey,
fortunate. We're
how am I,
fortunate to think
how
about
am I
this.
going to pay for the food for my family for dinner next week? And those, and in that type of conversation, the type of conversation we're having doesn't matter.
I think we're
so that's-
fortunate to have this conversation in
yeah,
some ways.
I'm not talking about people that are struggling to make ends meet. I'm talking of people that actually have some wealth behind them that they could actually move the needle here, and they should be parking some significant portion.
I'm fascinated by that line of thinking. I just think that most people are born in a world where the government takes such good care of you, whether we agree it's good or not, right? But they feel like they've taken good care. Because we've had some guests on this podcast, you know who I'm talking about, who is like, you listen to mainstream media and you do what the government says to do. And we're always like,
Oh boy.
so I just think that people think the government's going to do the thing they're going to do. And maybe what can I do about it?
And they're going to have to do that. And I've talked about it on our episode, on our shows many times. Like taxation, I'm not against it, man. Like a lot of the things that we live for, like we do on a daily basis. We drive on the roads. Roads aren't paved by themselves. They got to pay with taxpayer dollar. You turn on a faucet, water comes. You turn on the light switch, lights turn on. All this is done with taxpayer money.
The wasted studies with MIT on the CBDC.
That's something different.
That money.
But in terms of having infrastructure built, I'm for it. Tax me away, get it done, because I want to have this infrastructure built. It doesn't just pop from the sky out of the thin air. Somebody has to pay for it, and I'm willing to pay for it.
So
I
do
agree.
you think CBDCs are going to go into effect here in North America and in Canada?
Yeah, absolutely.
When?
For sure.
I say a pilot project in 2 years in Canada, something is going to be rolled out. It's going to be on a very small scale. Maybe they'll keep it in a regional area. Maybe they'll
What about the U.S.? You think in the U.S.?
I think it's going to be a harder sell to do it in the U.S., but I think it's possible. Why not? If
I asked Lynn Alden about that question specifically, and she thought the regulation front on stablecoins.
Look,
She's
man,
like, I don't think they're
I'm
gonna pull
listening
it
to
off.
that. If you can see right now, I'm listening to that episode right now.
Oh, you are? Yeah. So I eventually asked her this question.
When it's for your safety, because the U.S. dollars physical
For your
are being used. They're being used for crime.
If you say it like that, then yeah.
No, but I'm just saying they're being used for crime, and bad people that don't get vaccines and have spread COVID are using them.
There's many avenues.
So because of that, to protect everyone else, we need to transition to this. You've seen what's happened already. Everyone's like, holy shit, yeah, you're right. It started with,
And if it ties in with your passport,
and then you have no choice.
I'm going to give you a really scary one. So if there's another, something comes up that they prevent you, or they want to prevent you from leaving your home because they would want you to spread germs for whatever reason, they could do so with a CBDC. They could really limit your ability to move.
Sure.
They could,
because you're at Longos and you shouldn't be, so we're not releasing your money.
It's because it's programmable money. They could
Len, let's not
they
even
could
go
say it in
there.
such a way that you could only travel, say theoretically, in an urban environment 2, 3, 4 kilometers in a radius. Through that you could get your gasoline. You go to Shoppers Drug Market, whatever. You go to the grocery store. You cover your whole life.
The possibilities.
But outside
are
of
there.
that, they won't let you spend.
Whether it's used for that or not, we'll see. But the possibilities are there, 100%.
And I told you we go to Croatia often, right? There's many reasons that we go over there.
It's a beautiful country.
It is a beautiful country.
Great beaches.
I think more and more Canadians are thinking about having multiple places to live.
From the people we deal with right now.
I think about it all the time. I can't afford it, but
Yeah, but the fact that you're thinking about it.
I have to say that is it the prime minister or president of Croatia? I forget what type of parliamentary system we have set up. Or whoever it is, that gentleman, he goes to the European Parliament.
He's the European Union rep. He's not.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I thought he was a.
No, but still, I know who you're talking
He's
about. Yeah.
based, man. That guy, he speaks from.
Well, it also helps that he's a towering big man.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, so when he says
He
it, and
stared down Trudeau
and
when
he talks down to Trudeau and Macron and stuff, and he stares at them like, and he's a little bit of scary Eastern-looking European, hard-faced man.
Yeah.
And the way he speaks, it's fun to watch if you agree
Some of those
with some points of view.
those video clips are pretty jokes.
Yeah.
They're pretty.
I don't watch a lot of politics, but they're pretty jokes.
They're pretty good.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you so much. Really, pleasure chatting with you guys.
You
And
as
I feel
well.
like we
You
can
guys were
talk
great.
about for like a lot more about all this stuff. So thank you. Please follow these guys on YouTube. Their Twitter handles. Hand out your Twitter handles.
Mine's Joey Tweets with 3 E's in the tweets.
Oh, it's 3 E's. I wrote it down with 2 E's.
Everyone writes down with 2.
Oh.
If I could get the 2 E's, my God, man, I would sell that thing and move to 3.
Joey Tweets with 3 E's. And Len?
I'm the BTC price bot.
So if I follow you on Twitter, do I get like price updates?
I used to. I could still do that again.
Oh, really? So the BTC price bot and Canadian Bitcoiners on YouTube. Any other places to find you, or is that the primary?
That's it. That's everywhere.
Yeah.
Wherever you get your podcasts, videos, we're there.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, if you hear somebody ranting on the streets about Bitcoin, it's probably me.
Up late at night, running up and down the street.
right.
and
Love your
everywhere.
passion, guys. Keep doing what you're doing. And listen, I mean, I think maybe just as a father of 2 kids and just having other sources, other Canadians out there sharing this kind of information, I just love it. So I'm grateful that you guys are doing what you
Means
do.
a lot, man. You guys too.
Yeah, I'm just thankful that you guys are out there doing what you're doing. So yeah, thanks a
We're
lot.
squatting here. We're not leaving until we do another.
Listen,
Stay as long as you want.
I got physiotherapy an hour and a half. So
Yeah,
it'll
yeah,
take me an hour and 15 minutes to get home if we stay another 15 minutes here.
We're done. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you. Hey, thanks for tuning in. You can find every new episode of the Your Life, Your Term show on all the major streaming platforms. So Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. And if you'd like to get free copies of some of the books that we've put together, like these right here, or some of the reports that we've put together, like these right here, you can find all of those at www.rockstarinnercircle.com. That's www.rockstarinnercircle.com. That's it for now. Until next time, your life, your terms.